Just 2 days from the general election, and both campaigns are making stops in North Carolina, a key battleground state. Also, how will the presidential race possibly change the landscape here in the Tar Heel state? Joining me now, Dr. Eric Heberlig, political science professor at UNC Charlotte. Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Morning. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can we go ahead and first talk about, we had former President Trump and Vice President Harris here yesterday, but some of the speeches, much of what we've been hearing leading up to the general, what is the one thing that those candidates and their surrogates can do to reach the undecided voter going into Tuesday?
Much of what they're doing now is driving turnout. They're speaking to their supporters, making sure they turn out to the polls, and hammering their closing message that they think might capture the interest of those few persuadable voters. Speaking in media markets like Charlotte, both of them in the Charlotte media market, where they think their presence and media coverage can make a difference.
One of the things that we heard former President Trump say, and I know that this goes for Vice President Harris too, is he says, if we win North Carolina, we win the whole thing. But when you look at that, how big of a piece is North Carolina to either one of those elections when it comes to getting to 270?
I don't think Trump can win the presidency without winning North Carolina. Kamala Harris can. Of the competitive states, North Carolina is probably the most Republican of those states. So Harris can win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and pick up one vote somewhere else and still win the presidency without North Carolina. So in that sense, Trump really does must win North Carolina to have a strong shot.
So when you look at that, does the indication of early voting mean a lot? Because we've seen some of the state numbers come out and Republicans and undecided voters are outpacing the Democrats for early voting this year. Does that look well for the Republican side of things?
If I were a Republican consultant, I'd like that outcome. What we don't know is that if those voters are Republicans who have traditionally voted on election day anyway, and they're just shifting their vote. Traditionally, particularly in 2020, Republicans didn't mobilize their voters to vote early. This time they're doing it. So it's the final votes that count, not who's showing up in early voting.
When we look at this, we're going to look at down the ballot going into this general election. How does this presidential race change that going down? I know that there's some things that people in North Carolina were looking at. Will Republicans hold on to the supermajority in the House? Also, House District Race 105 with Tricia Cotham and Nicole Sidman. How do you think that this race plays down the ballot?
Yeah, so typically the top of the ballot races, in this case the presidential race, drive turnout for all the other races. People are showing up because they want to support or oppose a presidential candidate, and while they're there, vote for other races that are less well known to them. These few competitive state legislative races, particularly Trish Cotham's race, you could have sort of an opposite dynamic where it's been so competitive, so much money spent, polarizing candidates, people are showing up to vote in that might be ambivalent about the presidential race. So I think that race in particular and the race in North Mecklenburg County and Huntersville and Cornelius will help us understand how those suburban voters are shifting. They've been shifting towards Democrats over the last decade. If that continues, that could help Harris statewide and could help Democrats break that veto-proof majority in the General Assembly.